Hello and welcome to Sunday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Now, first things first, before I kick off on today's puzzles, puzzles plural, please do take a look at the videos that we've released over the last 2 days. There is a puzzle by Jesper and a puzzle by Totally Normal Cat that have dropped the jaws of everyone who've looked at them. So please take a look at those. If you like your amazing Sudoku puzzles, I cannot recommend them highly enough. Now, one of the requests we get most often on the channel is to feature other types of puzzle, i.e. puzzles that aren't Sudoku. And we're very happy to do that. We love other types of puzzles. But in order to sort of diverge away from Sudoku, we do insist that if we do try another sort of puzzle, it has to be brilliant in some way. Well, anyway, I asked the testers yesterday whether they had come across any such brilliant puzzles, and they have recommended two that we could consider. One is the puzzle on the screen, which is the puzzle I'm going to attempt in a moment. The other is a puzzle, yes, puzzle, by Fistemafel, no less. Now, that puzzle appeared on Logic Masters Germany a couple of months ago, and it's a hybrid of Philomeno and Yin Yang. Now, that sounded complicated to me, so I asked Mark what I should do. And Mark has basically said, do the Fistemafel puzzle as a bonus for Patreon, for those of you who sponsor us on Patreon. So that is what I'm going to do. After I've done this video, I'm going to turn my attention to the Fistemafel puzzle and try and do that. Mark says that is brilliant but exceptionally challenging, and it does have some quite unusual rules. So I figured that might be better to do that one sort of as a bonus rather than as a main video. So in fact, speaking of Patreon, tomorrow is the 1st of March, we are releasing our new Sudoku puzzle hunt over there. We will do that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon UK time. And we'll certainly shout out, of course, the first few correct solutions we receive. So this hunt is a little bit easier than some of the ones we've published before. And I definitely expect to get some answers tomorrow. So if you do like your Sudoku hunts, and who doesn't, check that out. 4 o'clock tomorrow. Lots and lots of puzzles to solve, a meta to complete at the end, and you will love it. And frankly, for $2 a month, it is ridiculously good value, and it helps keep us going. So why wouldn't you do it? And now, what is the puzzle we're going to do today? Well, it's this one, which is by the intriguingly named wormsofcan. And it's a Litz puzzle. So I haven't done very many of those on the channel before, and it's certainly a long time since I've done one, so you're going to get to see me struggle. This puzzle featured a few months ago on gmpuzzles.com, one of my favourite websites. Do check that out if you've never been over there. It's a magnificent source of handcrafted content. And and one of the reasons I like it is not only for the quality of the puzzles, but they also have these suggested times that you can look at and benchmark yourself against. So I'll read those out for this puzzle. The Grandmaster time, which is basically, you're one of the top solvers in the world. How long would that take you to solve this puzzle if you're one of those people? 4 minutes 45 is the suggestion. A Master, which is still, I think, a very, very good solver. That's probably somebody who might go to the World Puzzle Championship but not do terribly well there. That's a 6 minutes 15. And then an Expert, so we're still talking about people who are really good at solving puzzles, 12 minutes 30 seconds. So those are the benchmarks. I look forward to the comments where you tell me how you've got on. Now, here are the rules. I will read them. We have got shade exactly 4 connected cells in each outlined region to form an L, I, T, or S tetromino, so that the following conditions are true. Firstly, all shaded cells are connected with each other. Secondly, no 2 by 2 group of cells can be entirely shaded. Thirdly, when 2 tetrominoes in adjacent regions share an edge, they must not be of the same type. So that means you can't connect 2 L's, for example. Let's see if we can do this. So if this was an L, that would mean that shape would be impossible in this region, because this would connect an L here to an L there, and that is illegal, so don't do that. Anything else? the L's are connected regardless of rotations or reflections. So any form of L, whether it's pointing that way or it's pointing that way, for example, that's an L tetromino, albeit it's a rotation or reflection actually of this one here. So I mean, the rules sound complicated, but they're not really. Once you get your head around them, they're incredibly straightforward. Basically, we just have to connect. We have to draw shapes in each one of these regions. Only one shape. It's a connected series of 4 cells, so that would be a T shape. And then we have to make sure this T shape is connected to every other tetromino we draw in the grid, such that we don't create 2x2 regions and that we don't connect another, for instance, that would break the puzzle because these are 2 T-shaped regions connected to each other and we mustn't do it. Do have a go. The way to play, as usual, is to click the link under the video. Do remember to slap the subscribe button. Don't know who I'm parodying there. If you're not subscribed, of course. And now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Now, typically with Litz puzzles, the thing to focus on is the smaller regions to start with. So let us see if we can find, in fact, I'm immediately seeing there are not many small regions. So for example, that is nearly interesting. That's a size 8 region, but I can't actually shade any cell in this region confidently because, you know, I can't assume even this square must be shaded because it's still possible to create a T tetromino there, which would not need this cell to be shaded. No, that's the same. That's another 8 cell region. Weird, actually. This is, how big is this grid? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 18 rows by 10 columns. Yeah, because I was thinking, well, I was thinking this top part of the grid almost looks like its own Sudoku grid, but it's not actually 9 by 9. It's 9 by 10, which is why it slightly looks off square. But you can see that there's almost like 2 puzzles here, because this part of the grid is completely disconnected by this line across the grid there. That square has got to be shaded. I've got a cell. This square has to be shaded because if it's not, I'm going to use green and purple. Green means not shaded. Purple means shaded. If this is green, sorry, yeah, if this is green, how do I connect 4 cells within this region? I can't do it. The maximum I could connect would be 3, and that is not 4. There's a knowledge bomb for you from cracking the cryptic. Now, so this one is shaded. Okay, this is obviously a quite challenging puzzle because I don't actually see what on earth we can do. So we're going to have to, I think, focus on the precise shapes that each of these each of these regions can form. And there must be something about some of them that are preventing their neighbour from being particular things. But that's tricky, even in the restricted regions. Yeah, I mean, I could do that, for example. I'm not going to beat the Grandmaster time at this rate. Sorry about this. Okay, so maybe... Sorry, and I realise I'm being completely inarticulate here. That's because I'm really a bit stumped, but I'm wondering whether I can do something around the boundaries of the sort of 2 Sudoku regions. Well, yeah, there is something interesting here, because yeah, this is actually very interesting. Let's just have a look at this region just for a moment. In fact, let's take a step back. Let's take a step back. Somehow I need to connect the top part of the grid to the bottom half of the grid. So that means I need to be able to draw, there's got to be shaded cells somehow, at least one place that cross this boundary. Now what I've noticed is if we look at this region here, can this region ever provide a bridge to the bottom of the grid? And I don't think it can, because if any of these three squares are shaded, they always have to form an L tetromino. It doesn't matter which one is shaded, it's really rather clever. If this one is shaded, all of those would be shaded, that forms an L. If it's this one, that forms an L. If it's this one, that forms an L. So if one of these is shaded, it's in an L tetromino. Now look here, this, if that's shaded, that forms an L tetromino. If this is shaded, it forms an L tetromino. If this is shaded, yep, you've guessed it, it forms an L tetromino. So this region simply cannot connect to the bottom of the grid. So the connection has got to come through this is just beautiful. This is a beautiful idea, isn't it? This happens all the way along. Well, hopefully not all the way along, but I think it happens in this region as well, because that would form an L tetromino, that would form an L tetromino, and that would form an L tetromino. And if we connect these down, what could this be? It can't be anything but an L tetromino. It doesn't matter how I draw it. This one. How do you come up with something like this? How do you think to yourself? Do you get up in the morning and think, I know, I will create regions in a Litz puzzle which can only be connected to each other through L tetrominoes? And it's far from obvious when you stare at this puzzle that this must be the case, but I think it's true. This one, obviously, that would have to be an L. So the connection of the top half of the grid to the bottom half of the grid must come somewhere in here. And this, well, we can immediately see at least an I tetromino is possible. But we can't do two I tetrominoes because that's going to connect two of the same shape. Yeah, this is beautiful. This can't be an I tetromino. If this is an I tetromino, how are we going to connect it downwards? It can't be that, because that must be an I. It can't be this because of the 2x2 problem. Although this could form an L tetromino, and the I would connect to an L, which would be fine. Let's just do that. You can see we've created two 2x2s there that are fully shaded, which is against the rules. The same is true here. This would be a 2x2. And if you connect this one down like that, that is connecting an I to an I. That is absolutely beautiful. It really is a stunning idea. So now this must be the I then. Because the only other shape that's possible in these regions is clearly an L, and I can't connect an L to an L. So this is an I, and I must be able to connect, yes, and I can see how. I must connect this to an L, and I can see one way of doing that which does not create a 2x2, and it is like that. And that is a beautiful start to this puzzle. I'm unshading this because it would create a 2x2. I can do the same there. In fact, look, this region now, I've got its tetromino, so we can do that, and we're off and running. This could never be shaded because it would create this pattern, which obviously includes lots of 2x2s, which we mustn't do. So that's not in. Same reason that's not in. Same reason that's not in. Right. Now, let's think. We know that the connection of the top half of the grid to the bottom half of the grid only comes via this connected sequence, this bridge. So this bridge has to keep going. It has to somehow get into all of the connections down here because there's no bridge coming across in any of these positions. So if we look at how this can continue, how can we shade cells from these two cells to manage to connect to the rest of the grid. We can't do it through this one. If this is shaded, it has to form an eye, and now we've got two eyes connected to each other. So this cannot be shaded, and that means this must be shaded but cannot form an eye, so it must be an L. And that does that, and that does this, and this can't be a 2 by 2. This can't be shaded, or we create a 2 by 2. Oh, that can't be shaded, or it's connecting two L tetrominoes. So that's interesting. This region now is sort of sitting on its own. It's going to have to connect either through the bottom of the grid or through this shape. And this region still needs to connect out. So this must be shaded. This must be shaded because we know that we're connecting groups of 4 cells together. So even if I shaded that, we're still taking this cell. And all of those must be green. I mustn't create an L with an L, so this is not shaded. This is not shaded for the same reason, and we create an S. That must be avoided 2 by 2. I've still got to keep this going. So this is now our path to the rest of the bottom half of the grid. This would create a 2 by 2 if we shaded it, so don't shade it. That must be in. And there's an I there that's forced, and we can unshade the rest of it. Now, you can never shade this square because whichever cell you shaded above or below it would create a 2 by 2, so that's green. Yeah, okay. Okay, now let's think about how we're going to connect whatever happens in the bottom right-hand side of the grid with the rest of the grid. It's clearly going to have to come through this bottom region here somehow. And if it comes through the bottom region here somehow to connect to this region, we can't be creating tetrominoes up here. Because if we create tetrominoes up here and then down here, we can never get to these cells at the bottom of the grid that we need to get to in order to connect this region here to whatever's happening in the bottom of the grid. So this is we can definitely get rid of those. So one of these is in, it's not... it can't be an S. In fact, given one of these is in, this can never be in, and therefore the connection must come through the bottom row. That's a simple way of thinking about it, isn't it? Now, if we did that, that would connect that would either connect an L to an L. Oh, in fact, no, this must be an L. Because if this is in, it must create an L. Okay, so how do I connect this up? Oh, it's a T. That's really clever. There is one way of doing this now, of connecting this up. It's connecting this to this without creating a 2 by 2. So I can't use an S to connect these regions together. Let's just take a look at that. That creates a 2 by 2 here. That's not going to work. I also can't use an L like that because that will connect an L to an L. So what wormsofcan has done here is forced this to be a T, and that's beautiful. There are no 2 by 2s there, I don't think. And we get to this position. And again, what I can't do is strand this region. This region needs to connect to whatever's in this region and whatever's in that region. So the only cell it can get to that shares a border with either of those two regions is that one. So that's purple. And then we can't connect L to L. So this is in. This is in. That forces this to be in. We can't. Yeah, okay. Now, this is nice. I see. So now let's think about what we're going to be able to put in here that can connect to this. So if this is an L, it's going to have to connect to an L because the only cells that share an edge are these two here. So that's not going to work. It's going to have to be that, and then that, and that's going to be the bottom half of the grid done. And that was absolutely gorgeous. So let's have a look at the top part of the grid and see if we can keep this going. We can instantly rule this out. It would create a 2 by 2 here. Same is true for this square and this square and this square. All of those are not in. This isn't in either. That would form an L, which won't work. So the top half of the grid is connected to this via one of these two squares, not both of them, because that would create a 2 by 2 region. So oh, it can't be this one, because that's going to create an L, and that's going to connect to an L, so that's not in, so the connection comes there. Now, how do we do the rest of this? We can, if this is in, lots of this region is therefore not in. Anything that's 4 cells away, that one could be reached, I guess. Those can't. Although this is an L. So this can't be an L, so this is out. So what could this be? It can't be a T, because then the only cell that could connect out would be this one. And that would be stranded in the right of the grid and create a 2 by 2. So it's not a T. So it can never take this square, which means in order to avoid a 2 by 2, it must take this square and this square. And we know it's not an L, so it is an S, and it does that. And this, that's interesting. So that's out to avoid a 2 by 2. Now how do we we have to keep connecting the grid, and the only way is going to be through this square. If we come this way, this whole top left section of the grid never connects. So that's in, that's in, that's in. And we don't know whether it's an L or an I, but we can green out the rest of it. This can't be in, or it'll create a 2 by 2. Same thing with this square. It's beautiful. Same thing with this square, because it'll come round the corner and create a 2 by 2. Same thing with this square. And now I've only got 4 squares left in this region. It's a T tetromino, and I've got to avoid a 2 by 2, so that forces this. It's just beautiful. Avoid 2 by 2s. Connect this through the little alley we've created. That forces an L tetromino. Put greens in here. Avoid a 2 by 2. Oh, now, hang on. Let's have a look again. So we've still got to be careful here. So this is an, look, if we took that square, what shape are we creating? It's definitely an L, and it's connecting to an L. So this square is not in. That means the connection comes through this, and it mustn't be an L, so it has to be a T. Don't create a 2 by 2. This is a wondrous puzzle. It really is. This region, look, we've only got 5 cells unshaded, so the middle 3 of those have to be purple, and that has to be green as a result to avoid the 2 by 2. This is all green because we've done that region. We've got to connect up, so that comes out. That forces the shape in that one. That's an L connecting to a T, which is lovely. All of those turn green. Okay, so now what our task is to connect this region's shape, look, to this region's shape without creating a problem. So this can never be in because it will force the cell beneath it, and that forces the connection to come through the lower part of the region. This can't be in because it would create a 2 by 2. Oh, I see. Now look, this is going to be an I across the bottom. I bet you it's the only way of doing this. If we try and make an S in either direction, we create a 2 by 2. If we try and use a T, there's no way to connect the 2 regions together. So, yeah. And it's impossible to create an L without connecting it to another L. So it is an I across there. Those become green. That becomes green. And that is an absolutely beautiful puzzle. I hope you enjoyed it. Do let me know in the comments how you got on. I especially want to hear how many of you spotted this break in quickly, because that is just gorgeous. Thank you very much to Worms of Can, and thanks for watching. And we'll be back later with another edition, or I hope I will be, of Fist and Fells Puzzle over on Patreon. See you later on.